hold, the bitcoinhold.com. The Bitcoin self-custody is the whole. Find the strength inside your soul. Your the bitcoinhold.com.
You know, when you build a physical vault to store your wealth, you generally assume the foundation it sits on is, well, solid rock.
Right, exactly.
Like you scrutinize the steel doors, you test the time locks, you measure the walls, but you just trust the concrete beneath your feet?
But in the craft of Bitcoin self-custody, we're realizing that you actually have to verify the sand and the gravel inside that concrete.
Yeah.
Because if the foundational math cupped, the actual entropy is flawed, the thickest steel door in the world is completely useless to you.
It really is. And this week completely shattered the idea that we can just treat our signing devices as infallible black boxes.
Completely shattered it.
So in this episode, our mission is to distill the absolute most critical developments from the past week in Bitcoin infrastructure and self-custody.
And there is a lot of ground to cover today.
Yeah, we're looking at a massive paradigm shift in how hardware wallets generate seeds. We also finally have physical proof that our current hardware can actually survive a post-quantum computing threat.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is. And we're seeing some aggressive privacy protocols hitting mobile wallets, too.
So we need to cut through the noise and just focus on the signal that actually matters for your sovereign Bitcoin setup.
Right. So let's start with the physical foundation. Following up on that catastrophic 32-bit entropy bug we unpacked last week, CoinKite just dropped a major firmware update for the cold card.
Version 5.6.1.
Exactly. But they didn't just patch the code, they changed the entire philosophy of seed generation.
It's a total defense in-depth shift, really. And it forces a real change in user behavior.
How so?
Well, when you generate a new seed on this latest firmware, the device explicitly requires user-sourced entropy.
Yeah?
You can no longer just click a button and trust the device's internal random number generator.
Wait, you literally have to provide it yourself?
Yes, you have to provide at least 65 key presses with unpredictable timing, or 50 rolls of a physical six-sided die, or 128 physical coin flips. Yeah, and then the firmware takes that undeniable physical chaos and cryptographically mixes it with the device's internal hardware entropy.
I want to pause on the mechanics of that because I actually tried it this morning, and they tightened up the input handling severely.
We really did.
Like if you just hold down a button or tap it in a rhythmic sequence, the device just rejects it. It forces you to genuinely participate in the randomness.
It demands your attention.
It does. And I'll admit, from a technical perspective, I kind of geek out over this. I mean, forcing the user to roll a die 50 times entirely circumvents the black box problem.
Right. You aren't trusting the silicon anymore.
Exactly. You are injecting the physical laws of the universe right into the machine.
I see the cryptographic tyranny in that. I really do.
Yeah.
But I have to push back a little on the user experience.
Okay, fair.
We have to consider the human element here. Does forcing a user to roll a die 50 times create fatigue?
I mean, it's a bit tedious.
Right. Does it make someone frustrated, leading them to just mash buttons carelessly just to get the screen to advance?
That is a risk, yeah.
Or, and this is the counter-argument, does it correctly align the user's psychology with the sheer gravity of what they're doing?
Oh, I see what you mean.
You're creating a master key to bearer wealth. Perhaps the generation of that key just shouldn't feel as casual as creating a password for a streaming service.
That is a very fair counterpoint. It makes the digital feel tangible, even if it is, annoying in the moment.
Exactly.
And Cold Card actually went further than just seed generation. They introduced a brilliant protection mechanism for the actual signing process, too.
The PSBT verification.
Yeah. They now re-verify partially signed Bitcoin transactions, or PSBTs, at the exact millisecond before the signature is applied.
Which is huge.
Let me break down why this matters for you. A PSBT is essentially an unsigned check that your computer drafts and sends to your hardware wallet via USD.
Right, and we have to operate under the assumption that your computer is a completely hostile environment.
Exactly, assume it's compromised.
Imagine your laptop is infected with malware. You review a transaction on your computer screen, it looks fine, and you send the PSBT to your cold card.
Okay, tracking.
The malware waits for you to verify the details on the cold card screen, But in the microsecond before the USB sends the final mathematical approval, the malware attempts to swap the receiving address in memory.
Sneaky. So by re-verifying the PSBT at the exact moment of signing and actively cutting off USB download access before staging the final data, the device guarantees what you physically verified is what gets etched onto the blockchain.
It completely neuters that specific malware vector.
It's incredible.
Yep.
But Cold Card wasn't the only team hunting down these deep technical vulnerabilities this week.
No, Bitbox had a massive week too.
Yeah, Bitbox released a major security update after undergoing what they called an extreme internal auditing process.
And what is fascinating about their approach is how they found the bugs in the first place.
Right.
They actually integrated frontier AI models into their auditing toolkit to actively hunt for vulnerabilities in their own codebase.
Wait, so they literally turned an AI loose on their own firmware architecture.
They did.
What exactly did it find?
It found several severe structural issues, like they patched a bootloader exploit, which is critical because the bootloader is the foundational program that wakes the device up.
Right, if a bootloader is compromised, the entire operating system of the wallet just cannot be trusted.
Exactly. But they also found a memory corruption issue specifically on the Bitbox 02 multi-edition.
Okay.
If that device hadn't been set up yet and you plug it into a malicious host computer, an attacker could achieve arbitrary code execution.
Wow.
Yeah, they could install rogue firmware before you even created a wallet.
That just highlights why verifying the supply chain and initializing devices on secure machines is so vital.
100%.
But the bug that really caught my eye in the report was the silent payments vulnerability. Let's define what that is for a second because it sounds terrifying.
It does sound bad. So silent payments are a relatively new protocol designed to give you a reusable static address that doesn't link your transactions on-chain.
Right. A great privacy tool.
Yeah. The vulnerability they found didn't allow an attacker to steal your Bitcoin directly, was the good news.
Okay, good.
But if you used an infected computer to draft a transaction to a silent payment address, the attacker could manipulate the cryptographic tweak applied to that address.
Meaning they could route the Bitcoin to an address that technically belongs to your seed phrase, but one you have no way of discovering.
Precisely. It was essentially an on-chain ransom vulnerability.
That is wild.
Your funds wouldn't be stolen. They would just be mathematically locked in a blind spot within your own wallet.
You'd need the attacker to hand over the manipulated tweak to ever recover those coins.
Exactly. Thankfully, none of these were exploited in the wild, and user funds are perfectly safe if you update.
Right.
But it proves the point we started with, right? Single devices are constantly under siege.
They really are. And, if listening to all these firmware updates and deep-level vulnerabilities has you questioning the foundation of your physical setup, this is actually the perfect time to evaluate if your device actually fits your needs.
Definitely.
You should check out the Hardware Wallets comparison tool on thebitcoinhall.com. We built it as a comprehensive resource to break down the exact entropy methods, secure elements, and attack surfaces of different signing devices.
Super helpful.
Yeah, so you can use hardware that perfectly matches your personal threat model.
Because eventually you just have to acknowledge that relying on any single piece of hardware is a vulnerability in itself.
Yes. Single points of failure.
Even if you roll a die 50 times to get perfect entropy, what if the device's screen is physically compromised?
Or what if the firmware has a zero-day bug that the AI just hasn't found yet?
Exactly. That is where the architecture of multi-vendor, multi-sig comes in. You distribute the trust.
Casa published an incredibly detailed breakdown this week explaining the precise origins of the entropy used in their multi-sig keys.
Oh, I read this. It was great.
Yeah, and it perfectly illustrates the power of distributed trust. Like if you build a standard 3-key Casa vault, you are typically using a mobile key on your phone, a hardware wallet like a YubiKey, and the Casa recovery key.
Let's dissect the how of that entropy, because the cryptographic isolation is what makes it so secure.
Sure.
Take the mobile key. It doesn't ask a Casa server for randomness.
Yeah.
The app requests 128 bits of entropy directly from the phone operating system's native hardware cryptographic generator.
Right.
On an iPhone, it pulls from Apple's security framework. On Android, it leverages Java's secure random. The seed is born inside the phone's secure enclave.
Okay, so that is trust boundary number 1, Apple or Google's hardware. What about the YubiKey?
The YubiKey introduces a completely different execution environment. The seed generation actually happens in your desktop browser, drawing on the browser's web crypto API for randomness.
Totally separate from the phone.
Totally separate implementation from your phone's OS. The YubiKey then encrypts that seed using a passkey protocol, ensuring the raw cryptographic material never leaves the YubiKey hardware itself.
And then the third key, the Casa recovery key, is generated by Casa in a completely offline, air-gapped environment.
Right.
So let me use an analogy here to visualize this for you. Relying on a single hardware wallet is like trusting a single vault door manufacturer.
Okay, I like this.
Even if they are the most prestigious security company on Earth, if they have one catastrophic flaw in their locking mechanism, like that 32-bit bug we discussed, your vault just swings wide open.
Right. And in that scenario, your wealth is entirely dependent on that one company's engineering team not making a typo.
Exactly. But multi-sig is like requiring keys from 3 different vault door manufacturers just to open the room.
Yes.
Even if one manufacturer's door completely fails and falls off the hinges, the vault remains entirely secure because the other 2 independent doors hold firm.
And beyond the mathematics, the true value of multi-vendor multi-sig is the psychological release it provides.
Yep. The peace of mind.
Yes. It removes that heavy burden of feeling like you are always one firmware update or one zero-day exploit away from losing your entire stack.
That's so true.
You can read a terrifying headline about a hardware vulnerability and calmly know that, by design, it cannot drain your funds.
And that peace of mind is the ultimate goal of self-custody. So we've heavily covered securing the present against today's malware and today's supply chain attacks.
Right.
But what about the future? We constantly hear about the looming threat of quantum computers, machines that could theoretically crack the ECDSA cryptography that currently secures Bitcoin.
The post-quantum threat is just a dark cloud over the entire cryptography industry right now.
It is.
And for years, there has been a lingering assumption that our current hardware wallets are basically doomed.
Right. The myth was that devices like a Trezor or a Ledger simply do not have the RAM or the processing power to handle the massive complex math required for quantum-resistant signatures.
But Blockstream just released benchmark data that completely shatters that assumption. They tested running post-quantum hash-based signatures on existing off-the-shelf hardware. The Blockstream Jade, Trezor models, Ledgers, and the Bitbox 02.
And the results were amazing.
They really were. They tested an algorithm called SLHDSA. Without getting too lost in the math, this is a stateless post-quantum signature scheme.
Okay.
And the hardware handled it. The processors didn't melt. The catch, however, is the latency.
Right.
Generating a single SLHDSA signature on a standard hardware wallet takes roughly 1 to 2 full minutes of compute time.
Let's just visualize that user experience for a second. You initiate a transaction and then you just stare at a tiny OLED screen for 2 solid minutes waiting for a progress bar to fill up.
It's an eternity in digital time.
It's brutal.
They also tested the stateful part of a scheme called SHRNCS, which was much faster, taking just seconds.
Okay.
But stateful signatures introduce other complex backup risks. The primary takeaway, though, is massive.
Yeah.
Post-quantum readiness is no longer a theoretical hardware limitation. The silicon we have today can do the math.
It's officially shifted from a hardware crisis to a software engineering problem. Now it's just about optimizing caching and reducing latency.
Exactly.
And this leads to my favorite detail of the entire week. Because staring at a loading screen for 2 minutes is awful, developers experimenting with the Trezor Safe 7 came up with an ingenious solution.
That's so good.
To keep the user engaged while the processor crunches the massive post-quantum signature in the background, they programmed the device's screen to run a racing game.
A racing game on a hardware wallet.
Yeah, and they also got Tetris running on it.
That's amazing.
The device rapidly switches processes between rendering the game on the display and crunching the signature math in the background.
But it's not just a distraction, right?
Yeah.
The developers pointed out a brilliant cryptographic side effect.
Yes, tell them about that.
When the user is frantically mashing the directional buttons to steer the car or rotate a Tetris block, they are inadvertently generating human physical entropy. The device feeds those chaotic button presses directly into the signature's randomizer. It is the ultimate gamification of security.
It is an incredibly clever engineering hack, but I want to elevate this to a broader philosophical question for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
Are we prepared for the reality that the user experience of Bitcoin transactions might actually get slower and more cumbersome in the future? Like, for a decade, the entire tech industry has conditioned us to expect instant seamless one-click interactions.
Right.
But in a post-quantum world, we might have to explicitly trade convenience for existential security.
That is a really tough pill to swallow. The idea that verifying a transaction could take significantly more time in 2035 than it does today is a complete paradigm shift for how we think about technological progress.
It really is.
But if that friction is the literal cost of being immune to quantum decryption, the network just has no choice but to pay it.
Speaking of the balance between encryption and speed, let's pivot from the slow, deliberate world of cold storage to the tools we use for daily interactions.
The hot wallets.
Yeah, mobile apps and hot wallets saw massive leaps in privacy protocols this week. Let's start with Zeus, which just released version 13.2.0.
Zeus is heavily focused on mobile sovereignty and the Lightning Network, and this update is arguably one of their most aggressive security hardenings ever.
The feature that stood out to me immediately is their new duress protocol.
Right, so if you are physically forced to enter a PN, or if border security seizes your phone and tries to brute force the app, triggering a lockout, Zeus now executes a scorched earth wallet data wipe.
Wait, isn't a total data wipe dangerous? Like, what if I just fat finger my PN too many times? Do I lose everything?
You only lose everything if you haven't backed up your seed phrase, which is why self-custody is a serious responsibility.
Fair point.
And it's not just deleting the app. Zeus purges the node data directories. It completely wipes the eCache databases, which are the blinded Xiaomian tokens you might be holding if you use their cache integration. And it clears all cached cryptographic key material from the phone's memory.
So it leaves absolutely nothing.
Leaves nothing for a forensic extraction tool to find.
Incredible. They also tackled network-level privacy by adding support for custom mempool instances.
This is crucial.
Let's pause and explain the privacy leak this fixes. When your standard mobile wallet needs to check if a transaction confirmed or estimate a network fee, how does it typically get that data?
Well, it sends a network query to a public block Explorer server. And when it does that, it leaks your IP address, your specific wallet addresses, and your querying behavior to a third party.
Yeah, they can map exactly where you are and what funds you're monitoring.
Exactly. So by pointing Zeus to your own self-hosted mempool instance, all of those network queries stay entirely within your personal infrastructure.
You stop broadcasting your financial footprint to the whole internet.
It's a huge privacy upgrade.
Zeus also expanded flexibility by adding support for 24-word seed phrases in their LDK node wallets.
Which is basically a lightweight Lightning node running directly on your phone.
Yep. But Zeus wasn't the only team pushing privacy boundaries. Bull Bitcoin released version 6.13.0, and they integrated a protocol called PayJoin.
Oh, PayJoin. If you care about on-chain privacy, PayJoin is rapidly becoming non-negotiable.
Let's break it down. To understand the sheer power of PayJoin, we have to look at how surveillance companies perform chain analysis.
Right. Their primary tool is something called the Common Input Ownership Heuristic.
That's a mouthful.
It is, but it's basically an assumption that if multiple Bitcoin inputs are combined to fund a single transaction, all of those inputs must belong to the exact same person.
Right. So if I buy a coffee and my wallet combines 3 small UTXOs to pay for it, chain analysis assumes all 3 of those UTXOs belong to me.
Exactly. PayJoin shatters that assumption mathematically.
How does it do that?
Imagine you are splitting a dinner bill with friends, and everyone throws different amounts of cash into a pile on the table. If an observer looks at the pile, they have no idea who contributed which bills or who is owed change. PayJoin does this digitally. The receiver of the payment actually contributes one of their own UTXOs to the input side of the transaction.
Ah, so the inputs on the blockchain are an indistinguishable mix of the sender's money and the receiver's money.
Precisely. It breaks the fundamental assumption of surveillance.
Because outside observers cannot mathematically prove who is paying whom or even what the actual payment amount was.
Yes. And Bull Bitcoin integrated this seamlessly into both their wallet sends and their exchange flows.
That is massive. They also introduced a liquid UTXO consolidation tool.
Let's pause on that because it sounds highly technical. Why does a liquid wallet need a dedicated tool just to consolidate funds?
It's because Liquid uses confidential transactions. Unlike the main chain, Liquid cryptographically hides the amounts being sent.
Right.
But that privacy requires massive mathematical proofs for every single input. If your wallet accumulates too many small inputs, the data size of the transaction inflates massively.
And you can actually hit a hard consensus limit.
Exactly. The network rejects the transaction because the file size is literally too big.
Yeah.
So this new tool automatically guides the user through a self-transfer to compress those UTXOs, keeping the wallet functional.
It's all about smoothing out the rough edges of advanced cryptography.
Yeah.
And that actually brings us to one final mobile development from Blockstream called QuickSync. This is a monumental quality-of-life improvement for anyone who has ever tried to recover a wallet.
Historically, recovering a wallet is just a nightmare of waiting.
It really is.
When you punch your seed phrase into a new app, the wallet has to scan the blockchain to find your transaction history. It asks the network, did address 1 get paid? Did address 2 get paid? For thousands of derivative addresses.
Depending on your node connection, that can take hours or even days.
But QuickSync fundamentally changes the architecture of that search. It is an open source protocol that allows a wallet to sync in seconds.
Seconds.
Literally seconds. Instead of 1,000 individual address lookups, it uses a descriptor request.
Think of a descriptor like giving the network a master mathematical blueprint and saying, instantly return all transactions that match this exact formula.
Right, so it queries the Blockstream Explorer API, retrieves the entire history in one compressed package, and populates the wallet immediately.
The reason this matters so much is that it brings sovereignty within everyone's reach.
It really does. Staring at a syncing 2% screen for 3 days is incredibly intimidating for someone taking self-custody of their wealth for the first time.
Eliminating that friction without compromising the data integrity is a massive victory for broader access.
It highlights a fascinating dichotomy in the ecosystem right now.
What do you mean?
Well, on the cold storage side, we are intentionally adding friction. We're demanding physical dice rolls. We're anticipating minute-long post-quantum math. The vault is demanding your active, deliberate participation.
That's true.
But on the hot wallet side, protocols like PayJoin and QuickSync are making privacy and self-verification faster and more invisible than ever before.
It's a really interesting balance.
Let's summarize the signal we extracted from this deep dive today. We started with the physical layer. Cold cards shifting the paradigm by forcing us to physically roll dice to generate true entropy.
And Bitbox, utilizing frontier AI to proactively hunt down catastrophic bootloaders and ransom vulnerabilities.
Then we connected those hardware realities to the logic of Casa's multi-vendor multi-sig, proving that distributing your trust across entirely different operating environments, from your phone's secure enclave to an offline air gap, is the most effective way to sleep soundly.
It protects you through those inevitable hardware zero-day exploits.
Exactly. We also looked ahead with Blockstream, confirming that our current silicon can mathematically survive post-quantum signatures.
Even if we have to play Tetris while the processor turns.
Right. And finally, we saw Zeus and Bull Bitcoin pushing the absolute limits of mobile privacy with duress wipes, custom mempool routing, and the chain analysis breaking power of PayJoin.
I think the overarching theme here is that the tools for self-custody are demanding more maturity from us.
They really are.
They require us to genuinely understand where our entropy comes from, to run our own network routing, and to take active ownership of our privacy.
But in return, the ecosystem is delivering a cryptographic fortress that was honestly unimaginable just a few years ago.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with this week.
Go ahead.
If the future of securing bare wealth actively introduces friction, like if you are expected to manually roll a die 50 times to create a key, or patiently wait 2 full minutes for a post-quantum signature to process, how will our fundamental definition of convenience evolve over the next decade?
That's a profound question. Will the ultimate mark of a truly secure, sovereign setup be the very fact that it explicitly forces you to slow down?
It is something to deeply consider the next time you plug a signing device into your computer.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you found this deep dive useful for sharpening your self-custody setup, please rate the show and leave a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
It genuinely helps other Bitcoiners find the signal through all the noise.
Keep verifying, stay sovereign, and we'll see you next week on the Bitcoin Hole.
Hold your own keys, stay sovereign. The Bitcoin hole, the Bitcoin hole.